For centuries, people crossed mountains and traveled enormous distances to enter this cave, not just to pray, not just to see an altar. They came for something falling from the rock. Drops of water, so little that pilgrims had to collect them in a small cavity inside the cave. They called it La Stilla, the drop. And according to ancient tradition, people believed this water could heal illness. But here's where the mystery becomes stranger. The cave is connected to one of the oldest and most influential sanctuaries dedicated to Saint Michael in the Western world. Kings came here, warriors came here. Ordinary pilgrims carved their names into its stone, yet generations also came searching for water dripping from a ceiling. Why? And what happened to that water? Stay with me, because before we reach the Stilla, we need to understand why this cave was considered sacred in the first place. We travel to Monte Sant'Angelo, high on the Gargano in southern Italy. The story begins more than 15 centuries ago. According to Christian tradition, the Archangel Michael appeared here several times around the end of the 5th century. One account tells of a mysterious bull found inside a cave. Another describes Michael promising victory before a battle. But the most unusual story came later. Local bishops reportedly prepared to consecrate the cave as a church. According to tradition, Michael told them not to. Why? Because the cave had already been consecrated by him. When they entered, they reportedly found an altar, a cross, and what tradition identified as the footprint of the archangel in the rock. The sanctuary would eventually become known as the Celestial Basilica, a church inside a mountain. But there was something else inside. Water, not a river, not even a real spring. Moisture slowly filtered through the limestone. Drop after drop after drop. The water collected inside a small cavity near one of the ancient altars. Pilgrims began taking it, and over time, the water acquired a reputation. According to the sanctuary's own historical account, the so-called Stilla became famous as miraculous water and was traditionally associated with healing. Think about how unusual that is. People had entered the cave to encounter Saint Michael, yet they left carrying tiny quantities of water that had touched the rock. Why would a few drops become so important? Today, most people imagine Saint Michael with a sword, armor, a dragon beneath his feet, the warrior angel. But early devotion at Monte Sant'Angelo contained another dimension: healing. In this ancient tradition, Michael was also invoked against illness. And suddenly, the Stilla makes more sense. The cave was not merely a battlefield between good and evil. For medieval pilgrims, it became a place where protection could be physically carried home. A fragment of stone, an object touched to the cave walls, or a few drops of water. No laboratory, no medicine bottle, just water from a place they believed heaven itself had chosen. But now we have to ask the uncomfortable question: was there actually anything unusual about it? Geology gives us a straightforward explanation for the physical phenomena. Monte Sant'Angelo is limestone country. Water naturally filters through cracks in rock. Drops forming inside a cave are not scientifically mysterious, and there is no established scientific evidence that the Stilla contained a supernatural healing substance. That's important, because we don't need to invent one. The real mystery is cultural and historical. Why did these particular drops become so precious? Why did pilgrims preserve stories of healing around them? Faith supplied one answer. The physical cave supplied another. And for centuries, the two became almost impossible to separate. Then something happened. The drops stopped being collected. Behind the altar of the Madonna del Perpetuo Soccorso is a small chamber known as the Pozzetto, or simply the Stilla. Historical descriptions explain that this was not actually a spring. Water dripping from the cave rock flowed into this small cavity. But during restoration work carried out around 1978 to 1980, the old water course changed. The famous dripping water that pilgrims had collected for generations was no longer available there as before. Think about that. A tradition surviving centuries, and then the physical phenomenon at its center changes. Yet the pilgrims did not disappear. The sanctuary did not lose its meaning. And that reveals something important. Maybe the water was never the whole story. Look carefully at the stone inside Monte Sant'Angelo. You'll find traces left by people who arrived centuries before us. Crosses, Symbols, names, marks carved by pilgrims who wanted to leave proof that they had reached the cave. This sanctuary became so influential that it helped inspire other great centers of devotion to Saint Michael across Europe. The building changed. Empires disappeared. The old Stilla changed, but the cave remained. And every generation entered the same darkness, looking for something: protection, healing, forgiveness, proof. Maybe that's why a few drops of water became so powerful. They made an invisible hope, something you could hold in your hand. So what made the water of Monte Sant'Angelo extraordinary? Chemically, we have no reason to claim it was. Geologically, water filtering through limestone is perfectly natural. But historically, those drops became part of something much larger, a cave associated with an archangel, a tradition more than 15 centuries old, pilgrims crossing Europe, stories of healing, water collected one drop at a time, and then a Stilla that eventually stopped flowing as it once had. Perhaps that's the real mystery. When the drops disappeared, the story survived, because what generations of pilgrims were searching for inside this cave was never simply water. It was the possibility that somewhere between stone and darkness, heaven had once touched the earth, and more than 15 centuries later, people are still entering the cave to find out for themselves. This is Divine Eternal Stories. We investigate the places where history, evidence, mystery, and faith collide, without telling you what you must believe. If you want to discover forgotten Christian mysteries hidden across Italy and the world, subscribe, because the next mystery won't take us deeper underground. It will take us somewhere completely different, and what people claim happened there may be even harder to explain.